Catherine, can you hear me?
I can hear you, so can everybody else.
Okay, give me just 1 second. All right, I'm getting ready to press go live, and I'm going to turn your camera on, so then you'll be live. So get ready. I'm going to get ready to spin it around, and then when you do that, I'm going to send you the link for your page.
Okay,
For you to
go ahead.
All right.
All right.
Okay. It's amazing. Pay for it. It's all on. So then really we just need basically it was in my opinion. They probably needed to pay all and everything lights on, and then when the money came in, they're having to go back and take care of all the stuff and they let her go. And there's still so much more to do. Yeah. I was just talking to before the meeting, and also with Jennifer. Okay. With this type of stuff. All the radios they want to getting put into Ohio. We're going to need to replace all this stuff. Everything. So you're talking millions of dollars. Probably at least over $2 million. And then I was talking to her, and Motorola was saying that main repeaters and everything, 2036. So we're probably talking about planning $25 million worth of upgrades. 10 years. And they need to start planning.
Do you not have any additional, do you not have any more perspective on this now? Or maybe not. Like,
This hat.
Right? It's a shock.
And I hate to say it, but the commissioners back in '83 did not do the county any courtesies by building a boondoggle.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the November 12th, 2024 Madison County Council meeting to order. Councilwoman Likens is going to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you, God, for blessings to be able to gather at this meeting this evening. Thank you for all those who took the time out of their schedules to attend. Please bless us with the knowledge and wisdom to make decisions according to your will. Please bring us closer to you as we enter this Thanksgiving season. Thank you for your forgiveness and many blessings. Amen.
Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're ready for the roll call, please.
Councilwoman Keller. Present. Councilwoman Norris. Present. Councilwoman Likens. Here. Councilman Emery.
Here.
Councilman Steele.
Here.
Councilman Vaughn.
Present.
President Gale.
Here. I would accept the motion to approve the minutes of the October 8th, 2024 meeting.
And then we amend the minutes to reflect that I was present at the meeting.
Okay.
What do you want?
I
So,
was here, and the minutes say I was absent.
okay, so Councilwoman Keller is making a motion to approve with the adjustment of adding that she was present at the meeting.
Okay.
Is there a
So
second?
moved.
Is a second? That would be a second.
Second.
You made the motion.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Vaughn made the second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. For tonight's agenda, there were some additional transfers that came in a little bit late. There's an additional for the clerk and the sheriff, and then we also have MCCC Central Dispatch that added some transfers. And then there's also one additional salary ordinance for Central Dispatch that came in after this was printed. So would there be somebody that would want to make a motion to approve the agenda with those changes? Okay, we have a motion by Councilwoman Likens, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Norick made the motion. Councilman Vaughn made the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. I don't have any comments to make under Council President's comments tonight, so we'll just go right to the auditor's report.
Mr. President, Council, I have some things I wanted to review with you tonight. Some of it you've seen multiple times. We just update it monthly and try to add anything that might be helpful to the council in making decisions in the future. I will tell you, this PowerPoint display that we do that all manually based on what our financial system generates. But we are looking at some software that will, really at a click of a couple buttons, give us good graphs without so much hard work involved in getting it done. But if you'll take a look here, we're looking at general fund budgets again from 2018, trending down till 21, and then on the uptick quite aggressively going in through 2025. The next slide we have here is general fund budgets, and added to that are the new appropriations. Now 2025 is just an estimate of what you might do based on what you've done in 2024. 2024, after you passed I think this might be in a later slide too, but a $43.5 million budget, you added on 2.378 million, I think. So almost $2.5 million during 2024. So next slide, there's your public safety budget since 2018. You've seen this before. And then a combined slide with the two major funds, public safety and general fund, which puts you right at almost $50 million. Total debt, this does not include the new jail debt we took on, which was $79.25 million. And here's your interest income, and I want to talk a little bit about this today because that's heading in the other direction now. I have a concern there. So this year we'll top $5 million in interest earned on taxpayers' money that's sitting idle in the bank. I'm sure they would appreciate the fact that we earn some money off what's sitting there and make it more valuable for their services. This next slide is just really the budget pie again, if you will, how it basically is divided up. And the next slide is kind of an explanation of what I've already said. And I can get you copies of this and send them to you tomorrow if you'd like. General fund budget's at 3.9 million, public safety is at 3.3. Your rainy day fund's at 17,196,000. Your lit correctional is at 408,870. That's at the end of October. That is after we sent about $13 million to the bond trustee for the jail. So lit correctional $13 million was sent to them. It's been invested along with the bond itself, $79.25 million bond plus $13 million, or right at $13 million, has been invested, earning quite healthy returns, and that should generate about $4.4 million in interest income off the jail bond money while it's sitting idle, and that is mirrored to the investments, or mirrored to the construction schedule of the jail. So as expenses come in from the jail, those U.S. Treasuries mature to pay those bills. So they've been invested to earn income while they're waiting on payments for the jail construction. We talked about this a couple months ago. Bethany wasn't able to be here, and congratulations on your baby. But Bethany wasn't here that day, and I wanted to kind of go back over this a little bit. So we're looking at structurally balanced budget. GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Association's best practices recommend having a structurally balanced budget. That being a balanced budget is one that supports financial stability for multiple years. The government needs to make sure that it's aware of the distinction between satisfying the statutory definition and achieving a true structurally balanced budget. And what we mean by that is, and what the GFOA means by that, and we're talking about a membership of more than 20,000 finance officers around the country and in other countries. What we're saying is next year, what income or what revenues are you bringing in and what are you spending? Not taking into consideration what you might have saved back. Can you back up one screen for just a second? No, I think you're in the right place. I'm sorry. So state standards here, we structurally sound budget is quite different than what the state of Indiana might approve. And the state of Indiana basically would approve what's your revenue for next year, and what cash do you have in the bank. Add that together, we'll pass a budget. They would allow you to pass a budget and spend every dime of it, but that does not set you up for the future or the second year end. So what we're saying is revenues next year, expenditures next year need to balance. Anything over that, you're not structurally balanced. So you can move on. I kind of jumped around on that. Again, in 2024, the council budgeted $43,500,000, but during the year appropriated an additional $2,378,669, making the budget structurally unbalanced. Your revenue, I'm sorry, back up just a second. So you were at 43.5, and that was the revenue that was given the council to budget on. Did not include all interest that you would earn, because we take into consideration what it's looking like in the future. So we say, yeah, you're going to get $5 million in interest this year, but you can't spend all 5, because in year 2 or 3, it's going to be less than that. And I'll show you that on a graph coming up. That's what we want to be careful about. So we can move on now, Robin, I'm sorry. Since 2023, the budgets have grown and already structurally unbalanced, because we are doing additional appropriations into that additional interest that you will not be earning in the future. So non-recurring revenues would include transfers from other funds, refunds, sale of properties, unusually high interest earned, insurance reimbursements, anything that's not your regular revenue that you normally would budget on, you would not want to include. So here's the area of concern is when you, and 2025 is a guesstimate based on what you've done in 2024. So in the blue is your budgeted amount, but in the red is what you added on, and you're outside your structurally balanced budget. We can move on. Sorry. Here's another area of concern, or something we need to be thinking about. One is property tax reform. There will be property tax reform this year, thankfully, for us property owners, that there will be reform. But one proposal, or one that's been mentioned, is taking property tax levels back to 2021 levels. The reason you got to be careful about what you're budgeting and taking into consideration those non-recurring revenues is the fact that if you went back to 2021 tax levies, you would see a decrease of $3 million in property tax revenue. So that's something you got to be careful about. I don't know how that's going to play out. I am the chairman for the Association of Indiana Counties on their legislative committee. So I know there are going to be many proposals this year. We've already talked about it. This was just one that was mentioned early on during the course of the election, people running for governor. So we've got to keep that in mind. Another great concern is a reduction in interest rates. In September, the Fed lowered the rate by 0.50, and then last week another 0.25. In addition to that, keep in mind, in addition to that, we've reduced our overall cash position by moving $13 million of correctional lit that was in the bank account earning interest is now with a bond trustee. So that's earning interest over there, but it's earning interest that can only be applied to the construction of the jail and bond payments thereafter. So that's $13 million that's come out of there. And then you go on down to ARPA funds over the next year is going to be spent. That's about 19 and a quarter. That number's a little bit, maybe a little bit off, but it's close enough for this purpose. So now you're at $32,250,000 decrease in invested money, which is also going to earn you less money. So you're earning less rate on less dollars in the bank. So that's another reason why we say that interest rate will be, or that interest earned will be lower. So next screen, if you look at 2013 through 2024, that's your interest earned during that times cycle. We had a decent year in 22, excellent year in 23, 24. I want to explain the rest of it, but in 25, that's where we think we'll be in 2025 based on decreases, that 0.75 decrease plus the 32 million that's not sitting in the bank. So when we say, if you point on that, does it tell you what that first red number, is that like 2.6 million? I don't know if you can do that from over here or not. If you put your cursor on that 2025 number. Okay, there, yeah, you almost had it. Yeah, 2.6 million versus 5.1 million. So you're already down close to your additional appropriations for the year. So 26, 27, and 28, I don't want you to put too much stock in that, but knowing that it's starting to trend the other way, we could see that happening the following year. Yeah, presidential election, all that going on. I'm assuming they'll continue to drop interest rates, but I just wanted to give you a picture of what could be happening or what we think is happening. We can't be sure about those end numbers. But so my question to the council and for your concern going forward is what would be our plan to contain our budgets going forward within our recurring revenue. It's very important that we do that and we don't count on exorbitant amount of interest earned for daily expenses. You could always take that and say, hey, I got this big project. The county needs to overhaul the courthouse. We need this amount of money. That's a one-time expense maybe, but not for your annual recurring expenditures. So it's just a question I wanted to leave with you. I appreciate your time. I think I might be next on the agenda again, so I'll hang here if that's okay. You just go ahead and I'll wait on you.
Are there any questions about the auditor's report? If not, then you can go ahead and move on to the next.
So we want to have a little presentation of council members that are leaving. We try to do that anytime anybody's leaving to recognize you for your time on the council and the work you've done. Mr. Vaughn, you've been on the council from 21 through 24. Appreciate your service to the county. And that plaque's in recognition of that. I do have two other plaques for Anthony and Ben, and these are plaques that include being president of the council, so they look a little bit different. So mine looks like yours. Yeah. I have one hanging in my office, but for the president, we usually get one one of these with a gavel on it, so.
There you go, man, you got a gavel, take it out.
So, in appreciation of your outstanding service 2020 through 2024, with being the president in 21, 22, and 24, Ben Gale. Anthony's leaving also. We've worked together for quite a few years now. Anthony actually was my replacement when I left the council, and appreciate his hard work also. Anthony's plaque reads, in appreciation of your outstanding service 2017 through 2024, President 2018, 2019, Vice President 2020, 2021, and 2024. I will say early on, Anthony and I worked through some pretty hard times, and then Ben came along and we worked. If you look back at those charts, you'll see where we were and where we are today. And we worked through many things, the pandemic, the remediation of the county courthouse, low cash balances back then. I remember back in 2018, the county's cash balance was if I remember right, was 8.6 or 8.9 million dollars. I can't remember the exact amount. But, far cry from where we are today. We'll end the year after settlement at $10.5 to $11 million plus the rainy day fund. So we've come a long way and paid off a lot of debt. So we spent countless hours, both of you, on telephone calls during those times, and I couldn't even tell you how many hours on the phone. Working through different issues that the county was going through. So appreciate all three of you and your service, and that's all I have.
Rick, stay where you're at. I was given the plaque to present to you. Thank you for your service as the auditor from 2017 through 2024. It notates 2023 ICC Outstanding Supportive County Auditor of the Year. And I would just echo what you said. I think there's been a very good, healthy relationship between the county council and the auditor's office during the time that we've worked together, and that's really important for the sake of the county and the financial situation of the county. So I'll go ahead and present this to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a resolution transferring congressional school funds. This is resolution 2024-11A. Rick, is there someone here to speak to that one?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Is that a transfer of solid waste?
This says new business, and it's a resolution for transferring congressional school funds.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong line. That's the congressional school fund. Can you explain that a little bit? Or basically, we're transferring those funds to the state of Indiana, and they'll manage those going forward. It's something the county participated in for years. Some systems would come in and actually borrow against that. I think Robin told me right, there's 25,000 we change in there or something.
Right,
And
it
it's
earns less than $25 a year.
Earns 25 a year in interest off the CD that they just keep renewing in the state of Indiana. Counties are turning that over to the state of Indiana, and we're just following suit.
Okay. So we just need to
So moved.
approve that. So we have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion?
I'm just not understanding why we're giving the responsibility to the state. Is there a reason?
Something's done every year in every county.
That's not, that wasn't my question.
I can't hear you. Then.
Why are we giving the responsibility to the state?
It's
There's
something
an
that's
IC
done.
code.
Yeah.
I can give you the IC code, that it's really $25 a year. It's not really beneficial for us to bother with
So the state is the state requiring us to transfer? I guess that was just the question.
it. No.
We can't use it.
No, I know.
Yeah, we can't do anything with it. It's just sitting there, and we're reinvesting it for $25 a year. So
Then we don't have to do the accounting on it, the state will take over the accounting on it.
yeah.
That's a weird thing the council gets. Certain things.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes. Next, we have an appointment to the Alcoholic Beverage Board. And members of the council, you should have seen some information about Mr. Philip Caldwell, who has been recommended for this. Would there be a motion? You have a motion by Councilman Emery.
Second.
Second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion?
This is the old police chief.
Councilman Vaughn, go ahead.
Is this the old police chief, I believe, of Elwood?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Caldwell, Chief Caldwell.
Councilwoman Keller?
How long is the appointment for?
I think the remainder of this, I read two,
I'm trying to remember. I was told, and
I read it.
I didn't write it down.
The remainder.
Yeah, it's the current individual is resigning effective December 21st of this year.
That's a period of 5 years.
Yeah, it's a 5-year.
She's her term anyway, because she's been on it for 5 years.
I think she has been on it and then reappointed. So I'm not exactly sure when her term is
I think it's
finished.
next year.
Yeah, I think
thought
she's
read.
getting out 1 year early. So I think this would put
Yeah,
Mr. Caldwell on there for the remainder of this year and then 1 more year, if I remember right.
Okay, and then do we have a list of all these positions that we appoint and like when their terms are expiring?
Councilman Steele and I have tried to keep record of these appointments because when I first got on the council, nobody seemed to have that information. So it is in a spreadsheet form. I don't believe that it has the length of term, but it's what it is and
There were expirations.
was it? Okay.
I was unaware that, I maintained that there was a disappointment on there.
Yeah.
So we, as they come up,
Right.
we've added to it.
And I'll add this on and then I'll email it to the council before the end of the year. That way, as I depart, you all will have that list. For years, apparently, either records were kept or records were not kept or they were lost. And so sometimes we find out that we're supposed to appoint just because someone says, hey, we need an appointment. And I've worked with Ted and we searched and searched and searched a few years back trying to find a list and we just couldn't find a comprehensive list. So we have, Rob and I have worked together to try to do it.
There's a couple library
Yeah.
meetings, there's some temporary assignments when we voted on there, and I think sent it to Todd at one time, so somebody permanent would have the records and something like that, that's a good idea.
Right. So yeah, I will definitely add this one to the spreadsheet and I'll email that to the council before the end of the year. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
President Gale, I would like to have the record show that I'm abstaining.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that passes. Next, we have some transfers. First on the list is the clerk. And it looks like we had your original transfer and then you have a new one. that was
So
submitted.
she have two now.
Yeah, let me find this new one.
For the election board.
Is this one or two?
Yes, the election board. So if you wanted to address the original one first and then the the second one that was added.
Linda Smith, I'm county clerk. And first of all, I would like to say congratulations to all of you and thank you for your service. For those of you that received your plaque tonight. So seemed like to me it would have been a great time to give a round of applause. I was kind of surprised that we didn't. So can we do that? We appreciate you. It's a difficult job. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay. So as far as the first transfer that I submitted on October the 17th for $8,000 to transfer in the election budget from $37,000 to $21,000. So that was to pay for some additional ballots that we were going to need. And then we realized we needed more. So the next transfer that I did was just last week, and it was same budget, election budget,
from 11,601 and 11,602 to line 210, which would pay for additional ballot and additional ballot envelopes, and then line 310 to pay for the balance of the election system's maintenance and election support for election day. The total transfer from those was $30,000. So all within the election budget, transferring from lines 11,601, 10,000, 11,602, 20,000 to lines 210, which pays for the ballots and the envelopes, and then line 310 or 31,000 from the old school that pays for the balance of election systems maintenance and election support. Does that make sense?
So total 38.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I'm
38.
sorry, 38,000.
And then you
Make a
also
motion.
had a transfer for the clerk's 0001 budget.
I did. And so, and then we realized, Jody called me and asked me about that line. In the clerk's budget is actually 31001, correct, Jody? Which is for bank fees. So we are transferring from that $31,000, $2,300, the $37,000, which is rentals, $3,000, and then 210 office supplies, $9,700, total of $15,000 into the 440 account appropriation.
And what are the transfers for?
The transfers, which is on the transfer sheet that I sent to the auditor, is replacement of workstation office chairs, replacement of 4 electronic file stamp machines, and then for our training room, we're asking for 10 additional chairs that we use for our training purposes.
Okay, so for clarification, are the chairs for your employees or for the public?
Replacement of workstation office chairs, that would be for employees.
Okay.
And then new chairs for training room could be for the public because we use them for poll worker training.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does. So then the new chairs for the training room, do you not currently have chairs?
We have 10 chairs in there. That was all through a grant.
Okay.
Do you want me to explain that?
So are these replacing those or are they just in addition to?
The new chairs for the training room are new chairs. They're in addition to.
Okay, so these could be for like the public to like watch the canvassing next election?
These chairs are for the training room for training purposes. They're big, heavy wooden chairs. They're not just like folding chairs.
Okay, do we have folding chairs?
I have no idea. I don't have any folding chairs.
Councilwoman Keller, I think part of the question you're asking, the commissioners are in charge of this building, not laying anything on the commissioners, but they have some, so anything outside the elected official room, commissioners are in charge of this building. So you can't just say, but I know where you're going with it, and I just want to let that know. She's ordering stuff for her office, not about canvassing out there in the public building.
So before we get into too much discussion, we would need a motion. Okay, Councilman Emery
Second.
made a motion to approve all of the clerk's transfers. Councilman Baum seconded that. Now, is there any further discussion? Okay, not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Was that clerk and election board?
Yes. The next transfer is from the treasurer. Is anyone from the treasurer's office here?
I think it's such a
Okay.
small.
Would there be a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Likens. Is there any discussion?
Just for tax billing software.
No,
Yeah.
take most of this and put it from the side,
Yeah.
the building.
Okay, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next, we have the county agent. This is a very small one. I don't know that they're here. So repairs and maintenance, just transferring it to rentals and machinery.
And they hardly make much.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion?
I just have a question. So it says that the Canon copier lease agreement was more than they expected. So do we know if that lease agreement is accurately reflected for next year's budget?
This is this year,
Yeah, that's a question that would have to be asked to them. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
but. Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Now we have the drainage board.
Uh,
Good evening, Council. I am Angie Cox, Drainage Board Secretary, what have you. We are requesting a transfer from our 39205 stormwater mandate into our engineering 31188, too many numbers, for engineering cost for reviews of stormwater plans and such.
Motion? We have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Steele. Any discussion?
Angie, this, the stormwater mandate, and you're transferring to engineering pro service, that's for service. This is a account you guys have underneath the drainage board, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. The stormwater mandate, all of our MS4 reports and such is done through that. And some of our studies that we do. This year, the reason we have some of that money in there is because what we have going was able to be paid out of a different fund. So that's why, rather than requesting new money for engineering, that's why I asked to transfer. But with the new stormwater ordinance and drainage ordinance, things are gonna be a lot more restrictive, and so we're gonna be using every penny,
Yeah,
unfortunately, so,
I understand that.
thank you,
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
thank you.
Human resources is next. And I don't think I saw Beatrice here. So this is another small one, just moving 74.
So moved.
22 cents. We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Next, court admin, Tim Speaks.
Good evening, Council. Tim States, Court Administration. Before you is a transfer, and if I can give you some context on that. We did a pulse survey of the different employees in the court, and one of the questions we asked was, do you have the tools you need to do the job well? And we got kind of this overwhelming kind of surprise back, which was a lot of it around their workstations. And that they needed upgrades, monitors, desks, those kind of things. So then we went to look at that physically, and when we got into it, we really realized there was a lot of inequity between those courts. And so this is hopefully a chance, it's got a unique chance because of the way our funds lined up this year for us to really address a lot of those inequities across all 6 courts.
And you got 2 separate. The drainage.
That is a separate one, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. You can address that one as well.
Okay, the rent day fund was that we needed to move, we may have some updates that need to be done involving the board's case, the capital case, and we want to be ready for that in case we were to do those. We're doing an assessment of that now. It may be an update of some software potentially, maybe a little bit of hardware, but hopefully that upgrade is to allow mainly technical upgrades and a couple physical things to get us in shape for that. Moving the money in the right place for that, we may not need it, but we want to have it in the right place in case we do.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Emery to approve and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion?
So, Mr. States, if in
fact you don't need the 15,000, would that be money that you'd be able to put back into the rainy day fund?
I believe so, certainly if it's not spent.
And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be moving from the portion of the rainy day fund that we set aside for this case, and it would go into the general fund, so then it would probably take council action to put that back into the rainy day fund.
It's in the rainy day fund in the 39,000, you're transferring to 44,000.
Yes.
You do it.
Yes.
So it remains in the rainy day fund.
Okay.
And you just go and spend if it doesn't.
Okay, yeah.
We appropriate
So the 44,000 is still in the rainy day.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes, thank you. Thank you. Next, we have soil and water. You want to hear from soil and water? This is another fairly straightforward one.
So moved.
So we've got a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That passes. Next, central records. They're moving $2,000 from machinery and equipment into rentals. We have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion?
Do we know what the justification is for this one? It's blank on the form, so I don't know if anyone knows.
This position's also getting, is eliminated next year, going underneath the, anyway.
I'm concerned that this was for that contract for that, I'm going off memory, but like Navi something. I can't remember the name of the contract. And so I tried to get some clarification on that as to whether or not that contract's gonna proceed forward to the clerk's office, but I've not been able to nail that down.
So likely then this could be just a payment that needs to be made on that contract.
And there's a possibility we might, because I don't know that we gave the clerk's office a lot of those funds that we originally were gonna give to them. So there might be additional funds
I think
needed.
Linda's in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know that Linda's gonna know either until she gets,
Yeah.
until they actually do the transfer.
A lot of times at our November meeting, which is typically our last meeting, it's just getting things aligned in the right accounts to pay the bills that are due. So I wouldn't have any concerns on this one. All right. All in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That passes. Next, we have the sheriff and jail. And I believe you had an additional transfer as well. There are two sheets in our packet that got to us. So, Sheriff, if you want to just go over all of them.
Yes, sir. The first one are for some, taking some surplus out of one officer's line that's not there and moved it into three others, like based on promotions. So we'll have the money to spend up for that rest of the pay line for the rest of the year. That's the 91, the 73, 78, and breaking that down into the other three officers.
Then you have one for schooling. Or
Yeah, we're transferring monies out of schooling, 2414, and moving it to maintenance. We've got some car repairs, and that's also what the 8,000 out of the 39,000 line to move down to the maintenance line. And that will negate the new money request of the 9,000 to do the transfers of this money.
Okay. And then you also had a transfer from rentals and housing to utilities and supplies.
Yes, I believe so. I got these late as well, so. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the utility, that's the 9,000, right?
This was 25,000 coming out of rentals and housing, and you split that 10,000 going into utilities and.
I thought that was new money.
And then this is 15.5 into supplies. So maybe that's supposed to be 15,000 even for supplies.
Oh, it must have been real late today then. Right, yep, that's on the, for the out of the jail side, for the inmates that were not housed outside. They moved that back over for the utility side.
Remember he talked about they don't add up.
Yeah, so it was,
So it should be 15,010.
Right.
15,500.
Yes.
okay.
So what should it be?
So the supplies line would be 15,000.
Even?
15,500, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
There be a motion.
Approve as presented.
Councilman Emery has made a motion and Councilman Vaughn has seconded that. Any discussion on this?
So Sheriff, I'm pretty sure we gave you additional money for rental and housing this year. So I might be wrong, because I didn't look back at it. So we didn't end up having to utilize it there, because we didn't have to.
We're hoping that, the plan is based on where our model's at right now and our numbers in the jail that, and where we have our people out there at now, we have enough, this would be a surplus in that line.
Any other discussion?
The officer, that I can't find the line right now, just had it, I can't locate it. Is that, yes, thank you. The $9,173.78.
17, Officer
Does that
17.
zero that line out then, or?
I don't know that they zeroed it out. I'm sure they left something in there to maintain it for the rest of the year or what.
Okay, so this is a person that is still employed, that just,
That person will not need that money for the rest of this year.
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. And then next we have the prosecutor's office.
We saw some more transfers. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Triple C and Central Dispatch.
Yes, let me come back here. Okay, yeah, so MCCC,
Evening, Council. I didn't anticipate coming back before you all departed, but here we are. Irregular operations over the weekend caused us to go into contingency staffing for both of our facilities. I don't have the exact amount yet for what that's going to cost us in overtime, but it'll be pretty substantial. So what I did was went ahead and looked at unspent salaries and put together a request to transfer those unspent salaries to you so that we could pay for that anticipated overtime plus zero out or largely zero out comp time that we have on the books and we'll have on the books at the end of the year. So by doing this, we take care of the irregular operations over the weekend, plus it gives us the buffer to pay down or pay off those amounts of comp time, which we won't otherwise have to deal with.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilman Emery.
Good
Discussion?
Good job doing this. We talked earlier in the weekend and right when everything happened, so appreciate you getting in and doing the work over the weekend to take money from me and not ask for new money. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for communicating the need as soon as you saw it and getting it taken care of. So thank you for the great communication as always.
Yeah.
And I'll echo what the clerk said. You know, you've been very good to us, and individually and collectively, and we appreciate it. And wish those of you who are departing well. Those of you who are going to still be here, we'll see you next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. King. Great working with you.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next we have Central Dispatch.
Good evening, Council. Jenny Chambers, Madison County Central Dispatch. We actually have two items on the agenda for this evening. One is the transfer. However, the justification of the transfer is for coverage throughout the end of the year for employee raise. So I don't know how the council would like me to go about this. Would you like us to go over the presentation for our employee raise that we're requesting approval from the council before the transfer?
Yeah, if you want to just summarize that and kind of bring up some of the points that you brought up.
Sure, I do have a PowerPoint presentation really quick. Okay, so Madison County Central Dispatch, who we serve our emergency 911 services for the entire population of Madison County. That also consists of 15 police agencies and 12 fire districts. We also provide services for emergency management and mutual aid. Last year in 2023, Madison County Central Dispatch answered and relayed over 200,000 calls for the citizens of Madison County. 74,800 of those were 911 calls that our dispatchers answered and sent emergency response to the citizens of Madison County. We are a 24/7, 365-day week facility. So we have to have someone working at our center 24 hours a day. In order to meet our shift minimums, Central Dispatch needs 12 to 14 employees working daily. With that being said, we are currently at a crisis level with our staffing. We have, Robin, would you mind going back up to that one slide, just one slide up? We currently have 18 full-time employees. We also have five part-time employees and 5 admin. We're sitting at 16 openings for our dispatchers.
Because you don't pay them.
Regarding the pay for dispatchers from our surrounding counties, you'll see Boone County's at $23.59 for this year. Next year at $24.77. Hamilton County's at $27.99. Madison County, currently our dispatcher's hourly rate is $19.24. That's roughly $4 to $5 difference compared to our surrounding counties. You'll see in the graph, and I also printed out a handout for members of the council, the blue line in the back, that is for all of our surrounding counties along with the population. You'll see Hamilton County is they have the highest population, and compared to Madison County's roughly below Hamilton County. The red line is our call volume. Madison County had over 201,000 calls last year. That's right there with Hamilton County. You'll see with the annual salary rate, Madison County is significantly lower than what our surrounding counties are. The green line stands for the 2024 starting rate or salary rate, and then the other line is for the approved budget for 2025. Here's another graph for comparison. I know that it has been mentioned multiple times that Madison County has way too many employees. You'll see that in this graph, it's the same PSAPs with our surrounding PSAPs. The red line in the back is our call volume, and then the blue line is the allotted number of positions. Madison County Dispatch currently has 37 allotted positions for our 2024 budget. That's consistent with all of our other PSAPs. I would like to request the council to increase our dispatcher starting rate effective November 3rd to $25.01. That's a 30% increase. Increasing our dispatchers starting hourly rate will be able to retain the employees that we have and then hopefully get new employees in. Right now, our surrounding PSAPs are offering more per hour for all of our employees, and so we need to retain our current employees. You'll see that with the difference from our projected expenditures out of for 2024 compared to the 30% increase, if the council approves this raise, we're looking at a $78,000 difference. Here's another graph for comparison based off of our allotted positions and then also our 2025 starting rate. So for the 2025 budget, the council approved a 9% pay increase for our employees. That takes the 1924 hourly rate to I believe it was 2097. 2097. You'll see by the graph that we are still significantly lower than our surrounding PSAPs. With approving this budget or with approving this raise moving forward to 2025, the adopted budget for 2025 has 37 allotted positions. I would like the council to consider letting Central Dispatch use these funds and reduce our overall employees to retain our employees that we have to 30 allotted positions. That's from the adopted overall amount for appropriations for 2025 compared to how we would like to move forward. we're looking at around a $202,000 difference. So with increasing our employees' salary, our employees, they put long hours in. They are always there to answer the phones. They have to listen to the most horrific things that no one could ever imagine. And increasing their starting rate will show them that we appreciate their service.
I'll add that I did meet with Jenny and Rick and John Richwine were there, and she made the case very well that they are in a crisis situation. And other PSAPs around are knowing that they can target our employees here that are already trained, that have been through the training, and easily lure them to a neighboring county because they pay a lot more than we do. The other thing for the council to keep in mind, Jenny was able to do this with some transfers for the remainder of this year. We do have the extra $400,000 that we appropriated in public safety for next year. And so that would fund this. So this isn't something where if we approve this tonight, it would cause an issue with the budget next year. The money's already there. The money's been appropriated. We just, as the council, need to basically move things to the right lines and set the higher rate. The amounts of overtime and stress that these employees, I mean, it's pretty remarkable that we're able to keep people still.
So moved.
So we do have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilwoman Keller, and then Councilwoman Likens.
Can you put us up to date? Have any of the municipalities that were in arrears, have any of them in the last 6 months paid?
No,
Okay.
they have not.
Can you tell us, how many now are in arrears?
We have the city of Alexandria, the city of Elwood, Van Buren fire territory, and Stony Creek fire territory, which is LaPel. So we're looking at roughly $633,000 in arrears.
And they're still receiving full services?
Still receiving full services from dispatch.
And also, I will say to this, I started this in 21 and asking questions, and some dispatchers called me, and this was Mr. Bryn Jensen was there, and then Jenny took over. I'm not going to dwell on the past very much and blame fingers, but right now, and me and John talked about it, when Jody and John talked about it, by statute, you can't make them pay. You just got to open the window and say, but what Jenny has done, and the calls I have listened to, and the testimony she played the call for me, these dispatchers should have been taken care of a long time ago. They haven't. I'm not going to sit here and point fingers, and we're doing it now. That's my last council meeting. When I left here last council meeting, I was sick. I was sick because I know what the story the last 2 or 3 years. So I appreciate the council doing this, and our employees. Thank you. You're well appreciated. We don't know we need a dispatcher until you call 911. And I want to say thank you, Jenny, for your service. I can't imagine, this is our public safety hub of our county. And thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's.
I have a question. I just want to make sure I understand. So you're not utilizing, so we had appropriated 400,000 for this year as well, Ben.
Right.
So we're not utilizing that?
Um,
We're just utilizing money that she already had in her?
She's able to do it now quicker because of the process it takes to move that extra 400,000 around, and I can explain that a little bit. But she's able to do that quicker if she does it with transfers to get us through this year with the increased pay. So the council is aware, the extra $400,000 that we put in public safety for dispatch, it's their budget works differently. They're kind of a separate entity, and they receive funds from not just the county, but from other municipalities. We all know that. So we have a contract that those who are continuing to pay into are still abiding by that contract. So the contract says that we pay the 1.1 million and some change. And so the auditor's office needs a claim to be approved by the commissioners because that 400,000 is really it's in a commissioner's line. And so they all know and understand the intent of that. So for next year, the commissioners will then approve a claim that then allows the auditor's office to move the money from the commissioner's budget to the dispatch budget, and then she'll be able to access those funds. And that, I think that was maybe a little bit confusing because it's different than the typical process of a department head being able to just come to the auditor's office, put something on our agenda. And then
So Councilman Gunn, did we move that in a public safety? Because we appropriated 1.1 or 1.2 to the commissioners, and then the remainder of that, where we voted on the budget this next year, did that was going, the rest of it was coming from public safety, correct?
Yeah, it's in the public safety budget. However, it still is in a line that is under the authority of the commissioners. And so what the auditor's office needs for audit purposes is they need to have a justification for moving the money from that account to this account. And so the approval of a claim by the commissioners would basically be the agreement or the contract the auditor's office would need to move that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So it is much different than, it's kind of like a department within the county, but it's not the county's department. It's under the control of the county. So the 4921 fund is a fund that sits over here by itself. The county commissioners have a contract with all the entities, and then they pay their bill, and then they pay their bill, and it goes in this 4921 fund, including, I'm repeating some of what you said, including the county's portion of that at 1.1, whatever that number is. I can't remember exactly what it is. So the county commissioners and some on the council previously agreed to appropriate another 400,000. And that portion is the county paying more than their contract amount because some choose not to pay and support the dispatch center. So the county commissioners and this council has put that in their budget saying, if it's needed, the county will step up and pay that portion that is not, it's not in their contract. We want to support the dispatch services for sure, but we're having to do that because there's some that will not pay. So I'm repeating some of that, but there is an appropriation available. It would, and we pay just like everybody. We write a check to that fund like the city of Anderson does, and anyone else that's paying, and thank those that are paying like they should be. Thank you.
So Rick, is that 400,000 in there for her to go get until 24 to be appropriate at budget time last year? Is that in there?
It would be, the county commissioners would write a claim, and at the point they write that claim for dispatch services, they're going to have to write something because I'm going to have some coverage actually when it comes to audit time, because the county's contract is not $1.5 million, it's $1.1 million. So there's going to have to be probably action at a commissioners meeting, and talk to John just briefly about it, that says because we're having to step up and do more than what our contract says because we've got to keep the services going like they should be. So once they do that claim, then the money be paid and put in that 4921.
So last budget, we voted to put that knowing that. Did we not do something that we should?
There's not been a claim made
Well,
yet.
what I mean, not claim, but we approved it for 24 budget to put $400,000 over there.
Yeah, approved 400,000 in the commissioner's budget, yes.
Yeah, for them. So then the commissioner
No,
going to claim.
not for them, in case we came to this.
Right.
This has been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, the hope was and still is that the other municipalities will start to pay their share, pay for their services. And then the council wouldn't necessarily have to always have that additional there. But we're putting that additional there to make sure it can be utilized. So I do think there was just a little bit of a lack of everyone being on the same page as far as the process to utilize that money. But the money's there to get them through this year, the money's there for next year. And so all we would need to do is approve this and then also approve the salary ordinance later in the evening.
So then next year, I just want to make sure, because this year the 400,000 never got appropriated, or it got appropriated, but it never got given to Jen.
Right.
So next year,
when that 400,000 comes up, I want to make sure that she's going to need that because she's going to need it for these
Right.
salary increases. So then the commissioners will do a request for that or a, whatever you call it, a
Right,
claim
right.
for that.
And Commissioner Richwine is aware now that's something that needs to happen.
I'd like some clarification on this contract that we keep talking about tonight. Is it a current contract?
It is the contract that has expired,
Okay,
but
that's what I want to clarify.
yes, but all those who are still continuing to pay in are still respecting the dollar amounts.
Just
as
out
the
of good
terms.
faith.
Yeah.
Yes, not out of obligation.
Right.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have new money from some miscellaneous funds. First is the prosecutor's office.
Good evening, Council. Andrew Hanna, Chief Deputy Prosecutor. I have some packets here on some information about this contract. So just by way of background here, a couple months ago, back earlier this year, we were approached by the Office of the Inspector General for the Social Security Administration and asked them, we've been working in partnership with them where they have criminal cases that occur in Madison County. So these are fraud by beneficiaries of Social Security disability or Social Security supplemental income SSI income and Medicaid and some various federal programs and funding that streams from Social Security Administration. There are investigations that are conducted and those investigations for criminal prosecution are referred either to the U.S. Attorney's Office or to the county prosecutor. We've had a very successful long-running partnership with the Office of the Inspector General for the Social Security Administration because we file those cases and we aggressively prosecute them. We were asked if we would be willing to enter into a contract with the Social Security Administration to provide 2 investigators that would be assigned to a task force in Indianapolis that would investigate these types of cases statewide. To put it in perspective, there is only one investigator for the Office of the Inspector General, Social Security Administration, that investigates beneficiary fraud statewide. And this would make that from 1 investigator to 3 investigators. Our investigators that would be assigned to this task force would investigate cases statewide. This is not supplementing anything that we're doing now. Obviously, we are not conducting those investigations, nor do we have any responsibility to. We have prosecuted those cases when they've been brought to our office. But this is something new, and this would be at absolutely no cost in any way to Madison County taxpayers. This is all funded by the federal government. It's a contract that provides for the salary of the investigators, their insurance, all the benefits, the payment of the vehicles, just about anything you could think of, as well as some funding at like 10 hours of administrative pay for any time spent by like the auditor's staff or our staff that has to deal with submitting the invoices to the federal government. It's a contract, so it's going to work a little differently than what we have. We have no federal contracts right now as a county, but we have grants that are usually in a quarterly cycle that are paid in arrears. This is a month-to-month contract for a period of 5 years that is paid in arrears. So the county will pay out the funds, and then the federal government pays that back every month. And we turn in the invoices and the bills and everything like that. And like I said, there's going to be no burden to the county taxpayer in this. It's all going to be funded by the federal government. Those investigators that will work for our office will be, so the prosecutor has the ability to make an investigator. They have countywide law enforcement authority. We're working with the sheriff. The sheriff will make them special deputies, so they have statewide law enforcement authority. And then they will be deputized by the U.S. Marshals so that they will have federal law enforcement authority as well, because there are federal statutes at play here, state statutes, as well as a lot of investigations don't necessarily go somewhere criminally, but they can do in an administrative proceeding through the Social Security Administration, cut off their benefits and require them to pay back benefits and stuff like that. So that's what this is about. There's lots and lots of resources dedicated from the state Attorney General's office, and every state Attorney General's office is required by the Social Security Act to investigate provider side fraud. So when a hospital or different insurance providers, whatever, when they are committing fraud with Social Security funds, there's lots of resources committed to those investigations, and there's very few, like I said, resources dedicated to beneficiary side fraud. So what we're asking tonight, we've already went to the commissioners and they have approved the fund. We're just asking you to appropriate the funds into that fund so that we can get this program started.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilwoman Likens. Any discussion?
Okay, so I've got a question.
Yes.
You said that they pay this in arrears.
Yes.
So like the first month, if this is moving forward, how are you paying the employees if you don't have any money in that account?
So Rick, do you want to explain that?
Even though it's a federal contract, it works similar to a grant. Basically, he'll spend the money, it'll come out of the county's cash balance, and then it'll get replenished when he files his claims with the feds.
So just like we have numerous grants that do the same, you're running into arrears, and then the federal government has signed a contract promising us to pay us back.
So what does the county get out of this?
Well, one, I mean, I think it's a benefit to all taxpayers. Obviously, anybody that's paying into Social Security. Well, we've been a good partner to them, and that's why they've approached us, because they wanted to work with a prosecutor's office that took these kinds of cases seriously. And at the end of the day, what the county is getting out of it is a benefit to the entire state of Indiana and to all payers into Social Security. I think we'd all like to see Social Security continue to be solvent. And one of the ways that we do that is investigating the fraud and referring those for investigations. And at the end of the day, I'm willing to put forward some more of my time to make sure that we're supervising this program without getting any direct benefit to that. And it's not costing the county anything to do that. It's just hiring these employees and making sure that they're being supervised. Day-to-day operations, they're going to be with the CDI, Cooperative Disability Task Force in Indianapolis. And so that's where they're going to be spending their time day to day. But it's set up so that the Social Security Administration has to sign contracts with local law enforcement to be able to put together these task forces. They can't, the way their funding is, they can't just hire direct employees to do it. So they approach a partner, any partner. There are partners like this in something like 40 something states that have been successful. Some have been very long running. Indiana just hasn't had one. They've tried to pursue a couple partners in the past. I put in a lot of effort to get this federal contract. If you've ever gone through the federal contracting process, it's not fun. And so we're there at this point. And I think what the taxpayers of Madison County get out of it, at no expense, they get a benefit from a continued investigation of Social Security fraud.
So they're going to be on the county payroll?
Yes.
Correct. So when this goes away, are we responsible for
No.
unemployment?
No.
Okay.
I will say, Andrew, that I took care of my grandmother 17 and a half years before she passed. And I can tell you that I wish this program was there, because I can't count many calls that interrupted that try to scam her.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think people are aware of that unless you're involved with the senior community.
Sure.
And so I think it benefits taxpayers well, this program.
And to your question as well, Councilwoman Keller, these contracts that are in place, like I said, it's a 5-year contract at first, but it's certainly anticipated, if it works out well, it's going to be renewed and for an even longer period of time. And also usually in the second round of those contracts, there's a analyst that's assigned to the contract as well that can benefit in direct time to your county as well, because they're not going to be spending all of their time on this stuff. And in those contracts, they have a certain percentage of their time that can be dedicated to the county itself and the prosecutor's office. That just wasn't in their funding at this particular time, and so hopefully when we go to renew that contract, there'll be a even bigger concrete benefit for us. But right now, I'm happy to be a good partner in this program.
So are you hiring 2 new people for this now?
Yes. Yeah, it's completely new positions, completely different. And with the understanding that if our contract fails to renew, those positions would not renew as well.
Are you doing the hiring?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Next, we have the commissioners, ARPA funds.
Oh, this is the best part. Funds.
Good evening, Council. Jessica Bass, County Engineer. I have a lot of information for you this evening. I will do my best to get through it quickly, but please feel free to stop me if you have questions. To begin, I'd kind of like to just take a step back and talk about where we are to date with ARPA. If you recall, we were awarded $25,167,259 in funds through the ARPA program. Of that, the commissioners elected very early on to take the $10 million of the revenue replacement option, which means that $10 million of that is designated for operations or any sort of activity that would be normal government business. The remaining amount of those funds, the $15,167,259, then had to fall within very specific type criteria that the federal government established in the ARPA rule. And if you've ever looked at the ARPA rule, I think it started out at about 300 and some pages. And I believe yesterday when I looked, it was up to 467 pages. So there's a lot of information in there, a lot to unpack. Excuse me. So to date, we have, we established the ARPA leadership team and the community collaboration team to work together to identify these opportunities, vet them, bring them to the commissioners for approval, and then to the council for approval of the appropriation. To date, we have approved 32 projects for a total amount of $15,412,259. And that is taking into consideration that since the original appropriations were made, many of these projects have ended and they weren't necessarily, they came in under budget. So they didn't necessarily expend all of the funds that were originally appropriated to them. So those numbers are slightly different than what you would have if you had gone back through and added up what was originally approved, if that makes sense. The table that I sent to you does have the correct appropriation amounts for those, taking into consideration the ones that have ended. So that brings us to where there's $9,755,000 unappropriated ARPA funds. I also like to note that to date we have 6 of these 32 projects are completed. I anticipate 12 more of them being done by the end of the year. The others then will have some sort of a contractual obligation for the work that is not completed through the end of this calendar year, with the understanding that the work has to be completed by the end of 2026. And that goes for the restricted and the unrestricted funds. Again, the restricted funds are the ones that are from the 15 million from the general ARPA requirements, and then the unrestricted funds are the $10 million in funds that were designated as the revenue replacement. We use those terms interchangeably. So, I already feel like I've been talking for an hour. That brings us to the proposals in front of you for consideration this evening, and that is the second table in the packet that I provided to you. I'm going to read through those so that we can get them clarified. The first is to appropriate an additional $1 million for the Regional Sewer District Initial Infrastructure Project. This project was approved. We had a $2.5 million approved initially for this project. The leadership team thought it would be prudent to appropriate another $1 million given the nature of the project and the fact that it is a mandated item through IDEM. That is to provide funding for the initial infrastructure project for the Madison County Regional Utility District. It's being formed to address public health, environmental, and quality of life concerns associated with aging and failing on-site sewage disposal systems in unincorporated areas of the county. The second proposal is from JobSource. It is for the Scholar House Skills and Training Center. The amount proposed is $900,000. JobSource proposes developing land adjacent to the Anderson Scholar House campus into a training center. The proposed facility will expand access to on-site programming to scholars and their children, including adult skills training, academic career coaching, children's programming, parenting support, and tutoring. The third proposal is for rent and utility assistance for unincorporated and rural residents in Madison County. This is partnering with the Anderson Housing Authority, and they will assist Madison County residents in the rural and unincorporated areas that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic with rent and utility assistance. This support will enable them to stay in their existing housing, preventing residents from becoming homeless due to rising rent and utility costs. AHA will coordinate with the township trustees and utility clerks to ensure program availability and awareness for residents in need. Next, we have transportation vehicles for our coroner, his department. He has requested 2 vehicles for staff transportation. He's requesting the equivalent of Ford Broncos with the associated lights, sirens, etc. This will provide safe and reliable transportation for these employees. And the amount proposed for that is $85,000. Next, we have for the county jail. The county jail was always one of the items that was discussed from the very beginning of the ARPA funds. Obviously, this is one of the biggest projects that the county has probably ever endeavored, and the timing of the ARPA funds makes it prudent to have that consideration. Part is the funding, the overall funding package for the new facility. $7 million of the unrestricted funds is proposed to be appropriated. Next, from Madison County Planning Commission is updating the development codes. This request is for $283,000. Our current zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations are over 20 years old, and they are proposing updating these documents to meet current industry standards and to address recent development trends, providing the county with a firm foundation for managing development and growth. Next, we have short-term disability insurance. This is for $162,000. The commissioners have proposed funding the short-term disability insurance for all full-time county employees for 2025 as part of the revised sick time policy. And then we have for the County Parks and Recreation Department, operational expenses of $75,000. The newly formed Parks and Recreation Department is the accumulation of 18 months of master planning effort. This proposal requests funding for the initial operations of the department to enable the department to advance its initiatives. And then finally, this is a new proposal. This came to us late in the game because it was an opportunity that the Madison County Chamber of Commerce presented to us. And given the opportunity and the potential impact, we thought it was prudent to advance it. The County Chamber of Commerce will partner with the Indiana Destination Development Corporation to create a media campaign to highlight smaller and rural communities across the county. This campaign will collaborate with the communities to develop video, audio, and digital ads targeting municipal markets within 175 miles of Indiana, and it's designated to attract talent to our communities. The ask of this is $50,000, and that will be matched equally by the IDDC for a total project of $100,000, with us investing $50,000. That brings us to 40 total projects. Of all of the projects that we have discussed previously and approved previously, and the ones that I've presented to you today, $16,924,732 of it does qualify for the restricted funds, or for the funds that have the very specific requirements under the ARPA regulations, which leaves $8,242,527 that don't qualify. So those are ones that we have to include as the unrestricted funds should you choose to advance them this evening. That brings us to the total appropriation of $25,167,259, which would balance out the initial award. So with all of that information, I know there's a lot there to process and unpackage. I'm happy to discuss any part of that further or answer questions you may have.
Just, Mr. Nolte, do we need to vote on these separate, such as ARPA? Each individual project?
We have not in the past,
Oh, yeah, okay.
not in any of the meetings.
So I've got a couple questions. So I've been doing a lot of reading on the ARPA rules, and it's just really not the most intriguing.
It's very exciting, isn't it, Jenny?
And it's really frustrating sometimes, but I got two concerns on two of the things that were proposed. One is the jail, and not that I understand that I'm not against the jail by any shape or form. But when I was reading the rules, it said in the U.S. Treasury's overview of the final rule, it said construction of a new correctional facility as a response to an increase in rate of crime. Our jail, and I realize our jail is overcrowded partially due to crime increasing. That is not an adequate place to spend it. And then it also said construction of a new congregate facility to decrease the spread of COVID, which we could argue, well, if we have a new jail, we wouldn't have issues with COVID. And so those were two things where the Treasury presumes the following capital projects are generally ineligible.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So this, as you can imagine, has taken up a pretty significant amount of my time over the last 3 years. From the beginning, as I said, one of the objectives of the commissioners was to include a portion of these funds dedicated for the jail. I will tell you, I started off very gung-ho and excited about trying to get that portion approved under the restricted funds. I had at least 3, probably up to 5 calls with Baker Tilly, where I threw different scenarios at them and argued back and forth with them and tried to come up with a way in which we could make them eligible for the restricted funds. And it just simply was not possible unless we were to somehow show that building this new jail was more cost effective than 1,000 or 1 million Band-Aids at our existing jail. And that obviously is not a good solution. So that being said, we then switched the approach and had the discussions again with Baker Tilly, with our legal counsel, about what that looked like otherwise, because I know there are a number of places where that has been challenged. And where we landed on this is that the unrestricted or the revenue replacement provision does not specifically say that it cannot be used for jails or for correctional facilities, that is designated for again, I'm not an attorney, I will say that over and over again, but this is what it was explained to me, that's designated for that restriction is designated for the restricted funds. The unrestricted funds, there are a few specific things that it absolutely cannot be. One of them is you cannot put it directly into the rainy day fund. You can't put it directly into pensions. You can't use it to pay off bonds, I believe. I want to say there was one more that's escaping me, but it wasn't relevant to our situation. So where that left us was that everything that our team could find and everything that the jail financing team could find showed that it would be an eligible expense. Now, that being said, this is the federal government, and we are aware that we have an administration change. We don't know what this looks like. Reporting and requirements from the start on this have been fluid, to say it mildly. I think Rick and his team would probably agree with that. And so what we are doing is, as an extra layer of protection, we are going to enter into an interagency agreement. And we're doing this on all of the projects that are not spent by the end of this year. We'll enter into an interagency agreement between the county commissioners and a designated body. In this case, for the jail, it'll be the building corporation, excuse me. And that agreement will have very specific language in it that would trigger, if down the road there is a ruling or a finding or new guidance released from the Treasury Department that explicitly says we can't do this, then it would trigger a breach of contract. And that the terminology is important, because if the contract has breach of contract in it, that triggers the ability to reappropriate the funds. So if we have this agreement in place between the building corporation and the county commissioners, and down the road the Treasury Department changes their mind, which could certainly happen, then that would invalidate that agreement between the commissioners and the building corporation. The commissioners would then have the ability to reappropriate those funds to a different use. And one scenario could be that they use it to pay for salaries of first responders during the pandemic, which is not one of the eligible uses for the restricted funds, but it certainly could be for the unrestricted funds. That would then result in those funds being deposited into the general fund, and then the council could reappropriate that to the jail or to whatever a particular situation would be needed.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's a very convoluted system.
And I saw I saw where it said the revenue replacement, and I was kind of reading that and trying to ascertain what they meant by that. And I figured that's where you had this, what canopy you have that under. Because the other thing it said is that you need to have, if it's eligible, you need to have a written justification as required.
Yes.
So that will be the contract, or?
So that was Councilwoman Keller asked me about that today, and I'm going to be honest, I missed that part. I thought that part was only, when I first read it, was only for the projects that were designated for the restricted funds. So what we will do when we have the jail feasibility study, so we have a pretty solid foundation for pulling together a proposal. So we will go back and put together the proposal with guidance from Baker Tilly if needed to document the appropriate steps that are taken, and then attach that to the overall ARC plan that we are in the process of compiling that will be finalized by the commissioners before the end of the year. And that will include copies of all of these interagency agreements and the contracts and all of the proposals that we have viewed. It's going to be, it might be almost as long as the final rule itself when it's all said and done. So.
Okay, and then my second question was on the parks.
I'm sorry, which one?
On parks.
Okay, thank you.
So the park that we're talking about,
75.
75,000. Where is that park located?
So we do not have parks at this point in time. If you recall, a year ago, in the end of November 2023, the commissioners voted to form a new county Parks and Recreation Department. In January, we appointed the new Parks Board. In April, we had a public hearing and adopted the Parks and Recreational Master Plan. And then in June, we received word from DNR, Indiana Department of Natural Resources, that we are now an approved, we now have an approved IDNR master plan, which makes us eligible for different pots of funding. The intent with that operational expenses is to help provide seed money for over the next 6 months to allow that Parks and Recreation Department to start into some different processes that it needs to in order to get off the ground and get these capital projects moving forward.
So what my concern was with that is that it talks about, it says you can do parks, it says you can do improving outdoor spaces. So I don't have a problem with the fact that it's parks. To be eligible to use of the funds as a response to the public health emergency or in its negative economic impact. I get that part of it. But it needs to recognize the disproportionate negative economic impacts on certain communities and populations. And so my thought was, well, if we have a park in the county, how is that addressing that negative impact on those certain what's the word I want?
The disenfranchised or
Yes,
disadvantaged groups.
Yes.
So that was actually talked about pretty extensively in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and I can get you a copy of that if you'd like to see it.
Okay.
It goes through and it talks about where our disadvantaged groups primarily are and how many of them lack access to different parks facilities, and talks about how that needs to be taken into consideration as projects move forward. One thing to keep in mind is that the intent of this department is not to be what you think of as a city park or a town park. This is meant to be more natural areas, preserved areas, trails and connectivity, connecting places to each other and providing spaces to preserve nature. So the operational expenses associated with that are very different than the operational expenses associated with a city park with playgrounds and ball fields and so forth. I would anticipate the primary use of these funds, and I don't know for sure what the board will choose to use for them, but I would anticipate them using them to start getting some of the foundational things in place, the bylaws, the logo and branding, the messaging, the mission, vision, values. To start with some of those, a website, some different parts and pieces that are needed to help as we begin to work in towards capital projects.
Jessica, we had a phone call earlier too. We got to talk and I checked a couple, the jail project was, which I'm for, and let me tell you why. I called Allen County. There has been concerns that ACLU and this and that. Well, number one, ACLU is a very liberal entity but my concern was, is there other counties doing it? So I called Allen County officials I've had contact with in the past. They just got over a lawsuit and won that against ACLU. And Baker and Tilley was advising them too, which I feel really comfortable with. They put actually $30 million from their ARPA in their jail project. Their jail system way more bigger than we are building ours at. So I feel pretty comfortable in that. On the parks, it's not kind of considered under, it's a little different structurally as like a city park, like Shady Side.
It's very different, completely different, yes.
So that would probably, I feel pretty comfortable with Baker and Tilley. They advise you on all these projects you guys
They
work
have, yes.
with, and then, okay.
Yeah, and they advised that would be, and I may not have said this, and I apologize if I didn't. There was a lot going through my mind.
Right.
That would be one of the unrestricted projects as well. That would be the revenue replacement, because that would be essentially a governmental function.
Correct. And also her concerns about, well, what are we guys doing this money helping the community? Number one, in the city of Fort Wayne, the city of Anderson, are going to approach ARPA funds different than the needs are than a county structure. I did discuss that with Fort Wayne. Like the sewer project, which I was like, hey, maybe Jessica's pretty good after all, isn't she? Now, I mean, they get a lot of their money in sewer projects. So I got an hour lesson on what they did with the city of Fort Wayne to do that. So their structure is a little bit different between the ARPA money coming from the county versus the city of Anderson, would help the homeless and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting, the wastewater projects that you were doing. I was kind of compared to that. So this was a good job on that. That obviously I have interest in that kind of too. But, thank you.
Okay, I just want to check. There's been a lot of conversation here, a lot of presentation questions. Remind me, do we have a motion for this?
No.
Okay, then why don't we go ahead and get a motion so we can continue.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Family Recovery Court Fund.
Good evening. Greg Chandler, Magistrate, Madison Circuit Court 2. Last year we received grant funds from the Indiana Office of Court Services to launch a Family Recovery Court. We did that earlier this year. We began taking participants in April. Last month we were provisionally certified by the Indiana Office of Court Services. The same body that gave us the grant is also a certifying body. We have now about 20 participants in the program. We're getting about 3 per month on average. So we requested IOCS to give us a grant to fund us next year as well. They did give us that grant, so this is to appropriate that grant for next year. Now this won't be all the funds. We were able to do the program this year for less than the grants that we received, so we are asking for IOCS to roll over those grants. So this is actually less than we got last year, because with the rollover funds that we should be, well, they told us they will authorize at the end of the year, it'll be what we need to do the FRC for next year. So I'll be back in January asking for the appropriations for that grant.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you. Thank you. And Jessica can come back for the highway fund.
I'm gonna be honest, I forgot I had this one, so my apologies. This new money appropriation is appropriating cash funds that we have in the fund already, and this is to make up the shortness in longevity, and that was due to the recalculation of longevity.
And real quick, there's also the highway maintenance and repair.
Yeah, we have two different, that's because at some point in the past, someone decided to split our staff into a couple different departments. So 530 and 531 represent two different departments, both for the same thing though.
So Councilman Vaughn, was your motion to approve both?
So moved.
Okay.
So moved to approve both.
All right, so we have a motion. That's second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Thank you.
opposed? Thank you. Vote defenders, Brian Williams.
Good evening. Being here on a new money request is a little bit misleading. It's regarding the capital case. We budgeted for $200,000. We've gone over that this year, but with the compliance with the state, we get 50% of that back. But so we received 117 of the 234 back, but it just goes back into the rainy day fund, not into our particular line item. So that's so.
We have sport back.
Yeah, so it's we budgeted for 200. We've spent more than that, but in reality, we've spent 117. So that's why I say it's a little misleading that it's under new money, but that's the request.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilwoman Mikens. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have the recycling center, or the recycling center fund.
I'm just trying to cover the end of my payroll for the year because we had a few days, so we had to go in, we'd get a hazardous materials picked up, and that wasn't really, we don't do it on normal days because we can't have public access on all this hazardous materials, so it's basically less than $2,000, and we do have the money.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilwoman Likens. Any discussion?
What's the, okay, you got part-time $800. I mean, it's not a real big deal. I mean, it's such a small amount, but the bike and perp, is that just putting back in your?
The auditor's office, they said I needed more put into the.
In there, okay.
Yeah, that's what that's for.
Okay.
They wanted to make sure it was covered for the end of the year.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. So before we get to the last one under the new money, this one is a public safety item, and so it probably should have gone under the public hearing items. So just draw your attention to that. And this is something that the auditor's office actually prepared. New money request, public safety fund, 1.5 million. And that, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's to start the purchase into the bond payment.
Yes. During the structure of the bond, the county, of course, we got a bond for 79.25 million, I believe is what it was. And then also we needed an additional $9 million, $7 million of that coming from ARPA and another $2 million from elsewhere. This is $1.5 million of that. There's $408,000 in the lit correctional fund. So basically what's going to happen is as bills start coming in for the jail, we'll use probably ARPA first, this 1.5 next, and then we get lit monthly, so there'll be additional lit correctional. But that will save up. Once we use our $9 million, then they'll hit the 79.25 million plus the 13 million we sent to the trustee already. Hit that next, and then to finish up the jail at the, after about 2 years, then the lit correctional money will kick in, which will be sitting there gaining balances, and then finish up the jail project. Then the lit correctional will start paying the bond payment.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Emery. Second by Councilman Likens. Is there any discussion?
So we've got this 1.5 sitting in the public safety fund, right, Rick?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? passes. Oh, actually,
Or you need a
we
public
do need
comment?
to have public comment on this one.
Yep.
So if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak to this particular item, you can approach the podium and you can say your name and where you're from. Being no one, okay, then I would say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Okay. Next we have East Central Indiana Solid Waste District. That is correct. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, we are a multi-county district. We do come through Madison County because it is our largest net population. So we come to you for binding review.
Can you
The
speak up just
reason,
a little bit, please? I can't quite hear you. Thank you.
can you hear, is it better? The reason that we're here is, as Dee Dee was talking about the recycling center, it's a special waste. The special waste disposal recycling costs are just skyrocketing on us. We can't keep up. So what we're here to request is approval to move $70,000 out of our bank account into our budget for this year to cover our special waste for the remainder of the year. I've got some sheets if you guys just want to get an idea.
Well, you're in the red, aren't you, right now?
We are in the red right now. We've got the money in the bank account, but you can kind of see, if you look across this sheet, I mean, it shows our e-waste, our tires, our HHW, our light bulbs for 2018 through now. And you can kind of see those are all tons. So, if you look at 2018, we had 232 tons of e-waste. In 23, we had 178. We got our total cost went from 72,000 to 219,000. It's a national industry-wide issue, and we're just having problems keeping up. And we've increased our budget again for next year, but we are in the red as of right now. And we do have the money. We just need approval to move it.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, a second by Councilman Emery. Before we vote, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this specific issue? Okay, is there any additional discussion from the council?
Just real quick, so I just want to make sure I understand your graph here. So this is the numbers of, or is this?
Those are tons.
Tons, okay.
Tons. So, what I was trying to display in that is you can see the numbers aren't really increasing.
No, they're not. That's what I was, so.
It's there's all these new environmental standards for disposal, incineration, and landfilling, and fuel costs, and insurance. And I was just in a webinar a couple weeks ago, and everyone in Minnesota was talking about it. But, we've increased our budget again for next year, so we're looking at catching up with it. But it's going faster. They keep doing it in September every year, so it's too late. We think we're good for the next year, and then they get us again, and we're short again. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you. Next, we have the sheriff from jail.
Okay, council, this is the new monies to finish out the year for invoices that we have, fuel and food. And Rick was going to clarify on the food.
I don't know if I can clarify that or not. Avenue to proceed. So, do you have a request? Okay, so when they turned in their additional appropriations, if you're looking at this paper with the explanation on it, it's got general fund 1,000 at the top, but down here in these smaller numbers, somebody's penciled in the 1170. So I don't know if you can make a motion. I'm not sure where it got advertised at, if it got advertised at general fund or public safety fund. So either or, it's the same dollar amount. I don't know if a motion can be made, Ted, to
Depends on what it was advertised at.
yeah, I don't know, appropriate.
I believe I reckon it's-
If so, I'm gonna have to go dig through some stuff that's just brought to my attention a while ago. I'm assuming it was a general fund appropriation, because that's clear, and down here, it looks like it's been whited out and penciled over, so.
So you're talking about the food one, Rick?
Yeah, the
Yes,
food one.
Yep, for 30,000.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was advertised in the general fund. And maybe appropriation in the general fund. I'm sure that's where it was advertised at, because this number was penciled in as an account number, but it's listed on your docket as general fund appropriation, so I'm sure that's where it was appropriated at.
And that's where it's at, correct? It's not in the public safety, is it?
No,
That's where
I did read it.
that's where they've been paying it, I think, this year,
Yes.
public safety. But it was advertised as a general fund item, so that line item's still in the general fund. It's just, he's gonna have to pay his bills the rest of the year through the general fund instead of public safety.
Did you pay it out of either then, Rick? No.
You paid out of funds appropriated.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with paying it out.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick. And we have a motion by Councilman Emery to
Second.
approve and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Sheriff, was there anything more you had?
Just those three items, the $2,000 for office supplies to finish out 24, and fuel on 25,000. And then
Did you say something on the transfer though, that one of these you didn't need?
one was 9,000, which was
Utilities?
which we did not need. Yes, utilities, because we done the transfers out of the
So we need to take
8,000
out-
and the 2414.
So do we need to take out 9,000?
So Councilman Emery, would you like
And then the
to?
motion to reflect the 9,000 zeroed out.
Okay. And then Councilman Vaughn, you seconded that, so you're okay? with
Yes.
that? Okay.
Second.
All right, so if there's anyone that would like to speak to this particular issue, is there any council discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you, Council.
Next, we have the commissioners, workman's comp.
Good evening, Council. We have a request for $74,013.50. That's the balance of what was requested for the 2024 budget back in 2023, and it was short. So if you know a little bit about workman's comp, that's figured as a balance of your 3 years claims, in some formula that they use. So basically it's a non-negotiable type of item that we have to pay for. There are, however, some breaks that are involved in that that you can get, and we're on the higher end of the scale on those things. So kind of is what it is. Budget time this year, you fully funded this for 2025. So that's good news.
We have a motion by Councilman Emery to approve, second by Councilman Steele. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this particular issue?
John?
Yep.
Did we appropriate, it's usually at 450,000, right? For the workman's comp. but
I
we-
would have to go back and dig up what the total was.
So did you have more claims than what you did for the workman's comp? Or am I getting-
It's just due at the end of the year based on the other three. So I think it was one of those items that we were just a little bit shortchanged on. And at budget time for this year, you gave us an adequate appropriation for 2025 is my understanding.
This is a misappropriation of funds.
Lorraine White, Anderson, Indiana. Good evening, council. It's my understanding that this may be the last time that we're together before the turn of the year, when there will be new people taking over new roles. I think it's important that council members scrutinize new money requests carefully and hold the department heads accountable to the budgets that they've been provided. In that same vein, I also believe it's important that elected officials provide truthful information when addressing the council and citizens, that the council not vote on new money requests and transfers based on misrepresentations. To highlight this, I want to quote Benjamin Franklin, who once said, "Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech." Both the United States Constitution and the Indiana Constitution provide protection for free speech. Indiana's Constitution states, "No law shall be passed restraining the free interchange of thought and opinion, in restricting the right to speak, write, or print freely on any subject whatever, but for the abuse of that right, every person shall be responsible." At the May 10th, 2022 County Council meeting, the Planning Department asked for money to be transferred from the general fund to the Planning Department budget for office supplies and maintenance costs. I spoke at the meeting, stating if the Planning Department issued and collected fines to people who violated zoning ordinance, the department would not need to ask the council for your tax dollars. This video is online in several places and can be easily accessed. Ben Gale.
Real quick, you are here to speak at this point on the workman's comp request.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure you're getting to that.
Quit interrupting people.
Are you done interrupting me?
If you would like to have the opportunity to continue to speak, then you can be respectful and you can speak to the item that we're discussing.
You interrupted her.
I'd like to have my time restored.
I will make sure that whatever time I took with this, that you have it restored, but please go ahead and speak to this topic.
Ben Gale, who was the president of the council at that time, was apparently unable to comprehend how the collecting of fines would defray these planning department costs and save your tax dollars.
Okay.
At that meeting,
You're out
Gale
of order.
attempted-
You're out of order. Personal insult is not appropriate in a meeting like this. So again, would you please talk to this specific motion that's on the floor right now, not a history lesson of whatever you perceived. That's not what we're here to discuss.
So this is a content-based restriction of my speech.
No, this,
Unplaced manner,
yes.
perfectly legal. It's not, you have to be germane to public hearing if you can speak to that.
I have not even spoken for a minute, and I have more to
Uh,
say,
You had spoken more than a minute.
and I have more to say.
Well, then please speak. I will give you one more opportunity to speak towards this workman's comp request, because that's what's on the agenda. That's what we're dealing with right now.
At that meeting, Gale attempted to stop me from speaking and opined that paying expenses from fines instead of the general fund, which was made up of your tax dollars, was a county commissioner issue. After that meeting, I subsequently reached out to the commissioners and requested that I be placed on the agenda to speak. The commissioners have no public comment period at their meetings. My request went unanswered, and I have never been allowed to speak at a commissioners meeting on this issue. Today, the commissioners have asked that you grant their new money request, providing them funds from the general fund. Based on Gale's prior assertions, I want to state once again that $30,000 plus in fines, which Madison County failed to collect from Drew's Parks, would defray the cost to the taxpayers for these appropriations. Since Ben informed me this was an issue the commissioners control, I am asking that you find out why the commissioners allowed these fines to be removed and ignored this issue for 2 years while they continued to request taxpayer funds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. That passes. Next is listed under county council. This is something that actually the auditor office prepared for us. So Rick, if you wouldn't mind explaining this.
There's three items here, actually under the commissioners, but only under the commissioners because that's where FICA, perf, and unemployment gets paid from. So the unemployment is just related to actual claims. We're self-insured for unemployment claims, so that would cover any unemployment claims, knowing what our bills have been, what they're going to go through the end of the year, and that $20,000 would cover any additional billing we get from the state for unemployment. The FICA and PERF, those two items are basically related to that, not in its entirety, but that $2,378,000 in new appropriations during the year we talked about. Much of that, or a lot of that, was wage related, which creates the need for more FICA and PERF to cover those items throughout the remainder of the year.
So you're talking like the mandatory raises that we had to do for like public.
Now, this would be items that
You were saying more income, more revenue, or more salaries that we appropriated. So
during
like-
the year, yes.
So like the public defenders and.
Any, not at budget time, but anything that's happened since the first of the year, yes.
Well, probation, thank you.
We have a motion by
Yeah,
Councilor.
yes, I see where you're going there, yes.
second by Councilman Emery.
Who was first? I'm sorry.
Vaughn. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this specific issue?
Just get
Is there any council discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Human resources, office supplies, $140.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Would anyone like to speak to the human resources request for $140? Any council discussion?
So the justification on this says that they received $140 from the Edgewood Police Department. The funds went to the general fund and that they want them to then go plus supplies. Do we know what that money, why they got money from the Edgewood Police Department?
I don't know why human resources would receive that.
Yeah.
My only question was, does she need the $140? I mean, does she have something that she's gonna spend?
Use it.
Yeah, I guess.
Any further council discussion?
That's true, she did, didn't she?
Okay. It looks like we do have someone from the public who would like to speak.
Cheryl McKinney, Anderson, Indiana. I guess I'm confused. We have $140, which isn't that much money, but it's the principle of it. And our auditor doesn't know where it came from, doesn't really know where it went.
Well, this won't be an auditor issue. This is the human resources that's made this request.
So the money
Balances
came
the
in.
checkbook.
Who's responsible for the money coming in?
We don't know the reason for the money coming in. That's part of our question.
We don't know if the money came directly to HR. We don't know if it came to the county. We don't know how it got here. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
We would have to research that. There's a lot of revenue that comes to the
I might
county.
be able to help that a little
Okay.
bit, because this is a little bit of nonsense. Last year.
Nonsense.
the county-
It's nonsense.
Ma'am, right, go ahead, please.
Last year, I researched to see what came in the county and what went out the county. $311 million came in, 280-something million dollars went out. I don't have, like, at the tip of my fingers, what $140.
Right.
It's complete nonsense.
That's why we have software.
Is she, hey Rick, cause she's done something with maybe that town with maybe, cause it's weird. Hey, where's Jody? You used to be a councilman over there.
Well, real quick.
I'm just saying something
Real
simple.
quick, we still have a member of the public
Oh.
at the podium. If you'd like to conclude what your comments.
You silenced somebody because you felt like it was an attack on them. You didn't silence him when he just attacked me and called me nonsense.
And I will deal with that, but right now, you're up here to speak.
But you
to
dealt
this-
with her in public.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we
It's
see
rude.
how you guys work.
Thank you.
It's inappropriate.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That passes. Now we have court admin, Tim States.
Council, this is the second part of the funding of the project I spoke about earlier. It's labeled as new money because we're transferring it from one department to another. It would be coming out of the salary line item in circa 3 and going into 440 in court admin. And this would round out the funding that we think we need to do to make all the upgrades across all 6 courts.
I'll move second.
All right, I heard 3 people make motions
Second.
at the same time, so
Emery Vaughn.
Councilwoman Norick gets the motion,
Boo.
Councilman Vaughn gets the second. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this particular issue? Any council discussion?
I just want to clarify, I know this, but I want to clarify for the public that this is really not a new money request.
Right.
It is just transferring money that you have in one of your departments to another department, and the only way we can do that is through new money.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes, thank you. Now we have salary ordinances. First is ordinance 2024-11C for the sheriff and jail. Hang on 1 second, let me get myself organized. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, a second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion on this one?
this roll call we have to?
We don't.
As long as it's all.
Mr. Knowlton?
Yeah, this is first reading. We don't have to do a roll call, but it has to pass unanimously for it to be approved tonight. If it's not unanimous, then we would have to go to a second reading.
Okay.
Okay, any council discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. Ordinance 2024-11D, and this is for the prosecutors. We had a motion by Councilman Emery, second by Councilman Vaughn. Any council discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. 2024-11E,
Move.
and this is Family Recovery Court. We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn, second by Councilman Emery. Any council discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading.
We did over 12.4 million tonight.
Let's see, 2024-11F, and this is the Highway Fund. We have a motion by Councilman Emery,
Second.
or I'm sorry, by Vaughn,
It doesn't matter.
and then second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. 2024-11G.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Emery and a second by Councilman Vaughn. This is the Recycling Center Fund. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. 2024-11H. This is the Council Commissioners, which this is just a fight to prevent unemployment.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Emery, second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. Next, we have ordinance 2024-11I.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we amend ordinance 2024-11I, line item 9513-11301 second deputy. It currently reads 25,000. I would like to amend that to 2,500.
Thank you for that. I did talk to Rick earlier, and that's what he was requesting that to be. So we had a motion to pass with that one change of the second deputy by Councilwoman Keller, and we had a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion?
So my motion stems from, I noticed this line item and it looked a little high to me. And so I went and looked at the requested 2025 budget. This is in the auditor's plat book maintenance fund, which is one of those miscellaneous funds. And what had been requested was 2,500 for the second deputy, 77,500 for machinery and equipment, and $81,850 for professional services. But that 2,500 did not match the 25,000 I was seeing in the salary ordinance. So I did go on Indiana Gateway, and Indiana Gateway was showing the following as both published and adopted. So it showed that for the second deputy published 25,000, and that's saying that's what we adopted. And it said for machinery and equipment 75,000 and professional services $61,850. And so at some point those numbers were changed without council approval. And so that's why I want to make sure that salary ordinance reads the 2,500, which was what was requested to the council, and we did not make any changes to that number.
Councilman Gale, do we need to change and amend the other two because they don't, or you just?
No.
Well, the other two are not salaries.
Yeah.
So,
And they're
okay.
actually lower than what was requested, and so I think it's appropriate to leave them as is.
So you want to leave it just one?
Yeah.
It appears that an extra zero just got.
No, it's not, because they changed the other two line items so that the total fund number was the same. So that's an intentional, it's not a zero that got left off or
You don't
added.
know that it was
I
intentional.
absolutely do.
No, you don't. And the
Okay,
person
well,
that did
let's
that's not
just
here to
read
discuss that.
aloud the email
I second
response
that.
that I got. Bethany, Todd does the upload and he wrote the budgets for the miscellaneous funds because I will not be here next year. Although the total budget did not change, I didn't authorize any changes to these line items, and they should read as follows. second deputy, 2,500, machinery and equipment, 77,500, professional services, 81,850. This matches the miscellaneous budgets I sent on to the council on 8/16/2024. I would only approve the salary ordinance in the amount of 2,500 and the line 1181-11301. If he's requesting something different, he will need to make a request next year. Thanks for bringing this to my attention, Rick.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this?
Not on that, but on this, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up, the, 4967. There's no names here, but it's, give me a minute, it's the recycling director. So we had some conversation, last year about the exempt versus non-exempt employees. There were a total of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe, that were gonna have to be evaluated. And if we didn't increase the salaries up to 58,656, then they were gonna have to go to non-exempt status, which I had a conversation with Ben earlier today, and I looked at all of the other salaries and they stayed at what they were. And I know there's been conversation with the commissioners to change those positions to non-exempt positions. Now that one there, it's not, the increase is in the budget, but that's an increase of almost, $10,750. We'd have to justify the overtime for a year to accumulate to that amount in order to give that amount of an increase. Does that make sense? Because once they go to non-exempt status, then if they work over 40 hours, they would get overtime. Are you guys following me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not in favor of raising that salary to 58,656. I realize it's not a general fund budget, but I think it needs to stay where it's at and go to non-exempt status like we did with all the rest of them that were had to be addressed this year. And so I wanted to have some conversation with the council about that before
Do we have clarification?
Page number real quick, sorry.
on what are you,
I'm looking at the
I'm sorry.
ordinance, I'm just trying to find.
They're in order by number,
Okay,
Ben,
what number is that one?
4967. There's no page numbers on this.
Okay, sorry, Councilor Bond, I just wanted to.
Do we have clarification whether it's non-exempt or exempt or?
No, they are currently an exempt employee.
Okay,
They are one of them that is a PAT, which is Professional Administrative and Technology employee. However many I said, there was just a handful that had, the federal government said if you're going to have them on exempt status as a PAT, they have to go up to 58,656. All of the other ones that were on this list that we left, and they're going to be switched over to non-exempt, and they'll be able to get overtime. Okay, because the amount of the increases were pretty substantial in most of them, only one wasn't. That even with overtime, they're never going to utilize up that amount of funding, if that makes sense.
right.
This one here didn't get caught.
We passed the 58,656, is that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at the right column. And I think the focus on exempt versus non-exempt was as we were trying to budget the general fund, or to balance the general fund, we had to make that determination that certain people would have to go to non-exempt because we just simply couldn't afford to move them all to exempt. And I think that there was not it didn't seem necessary to focus on that or make that same determination on funds that were outside of the general fund. There was money in some of these other funds to cover those things.
Right.
So for me, it was more about the exempt, non-exempt. It was more about balancing the general fund. That was kind of where my head was. So.
And I get that, I do. But to increase this salary by over $10,000, when we've got a lot of positions within our general fund that are very comparable positions and they're being paid less than that, I just don't think that that's correct to do that.
So Councilor North, what's your motion?
So my motion is that it needs to go back to the 47, 249, 28.
Just to be correct in how we're doing this, we do have a motion in a second with the amendment in the $2,500 amount. So then you would need to amend.
So
that
I'm
motion.
making an amendment to include the $2,500 plus the director goes back to 47, 259, 28. And then have a conversation with the commissioners to have that also changed to non-exempt.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendment to the motion. So is there discussion on that amendment to the motion?
Was our intent, because I remember that conversation, did that just get overlooked and we forgot to take it out?
I think it was overlooked personally.
Because it was not
in a-
in the general.
Correct.
This is in the miscellaneous funds that we never looked through.
Because nobody else got an increase. Nobody
Correct.
else. So it was an oversight on our part.
Yes.
There's other increases and other pay increases in the miscellaneous funds that have not been affected exempt versus non-exempt.
Councilwoman North, remind me, what was that number you?
47,250. I'm sorry. Let me start over. $47,249.28.
Okay. So any other discussion on that?
It is line. The department is 4967, and the line number is 11002.
Okay, so we need to, well, the original motion had the first change in it. So we would need to vote on this current amended motion, and then we do the original, correct?
As long as Ms. Keller, Councilwoman Keller is fine with her amendment being adopted as amended, as opposed to just the amendment which you vote on and then you vote on the main motion.
Right,
Do you want me to withdraw my motion so it's easier?
No, because she was the first motion. So that's
Yeah,
what
don't
I'm-
do
That's
that.
what I'm just getting. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So she was the very
So
first.
she presented it as amended.
Right.
Understood. So now we have one amendment to her motion. We'll handle that, then we'll just vote on the whole thing.
Okay, okay. All right, then, so we will be voting on the amendment that Councilwoman North made, or made the motion for, and then we had Councilman Vaughn that seconded that.
And my motion included her amendment as well.
Didn't have
Okay.
to. So you're amending her motion.
I amended her amendment.
Okay, all in favor then of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. So now we get back to the original motion that has been amended. And let me jot this down here so that. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so is there any discussion then on the motion as amended?
Do we want to discuss any of the other pay increases in the miscellaneous funds?
If someone wants to make another motion
What
to
is it?
amend, we could.
What was it, Councilman Gale? I didn't hear, sorry. my
Right
bad.
now, what we're discussing right now is Councilwoman Keller's motion that has now been amended by the motion put forth by Councilwoman North. So that's basically the ordinance with two line items changed. One was the 25,000 to 2,500, and the other one was the director of recycling. That salary went down. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
All right, let's try this. I make a motion to amend the current motion to just remove the salary ordinances that are in the miscellaneous funds, and that would report back to 2024. So that way there would be no pay increases out of the miscellaneous funds.
I need English because I don't understand what.
Yeah, so amendment number 2, okay.
We talked about this during budget time, and matter of fact, I think we even voted on it.
What is
it?
But we never actually brought up.
Councilwoman Keller, let Councilman Emery finish his
Sorry, I thought you was finished. Go ahead.
We're passing up on the opportunity to give pay raises out of other areas other than the general fund to people who we all agree deserve pay raises. We're never going to be able to give pay raises if we don't give pay raises out of things like the miscellaneous funds, so that we can use the general fund, the limited resources we have, the general fund, to give pay raises to the other folks next year. So again, if we just keep saying we're not gonna give raises till we give everybody a raise, we're never gonna give anyone a raise. So you've got to get past that. You've got to get past saying it's all or none. If we do that, no one ever gets a raise in the county. You have to give raises as the revenues become available, whether that's through general or through miscellaneous funds. You take small bites of the apple. If we wait till we can eat the whole apple, it's never going to happen. So again, we discussed this during budget time. So I think we're beating a dead horse here.
So let's make sure real quick, we have a motion, we don't have a second for this yet. Would anyone like to second this? To allow us to further. Well, I'm just saying, under Robert's rules, we really need to have a second if we're going to discuss this.
But can I say something legally and no things back? I mean, this is
I'll
something that.
second it.
Okay, we have a second by Councilwoman North, thank you.
Okay.
I called down the state about a couple of those funds, and the state told me that in the prosecutor's office, you can't regulate. So now you're treading the illegal line. So maybe know what you guys are doing, because you're not allowed to touch some of these funds. I'm not saying every fund, but I called down there and they said they answer what discretionary funds in the prosecutor's office. They even talked to Mr. Hanna about it. So I don't think legally you're getting in an area where we shouldn't even touch. You better be careful. Have you went down and talked to anyone in the state about this? Because we're to be getting ourselves in some trouble here.
My issue with this is that we never, like during the budget adoption, we never brought up the miscellaneous funds to go through. And obviously that's how we missed that a line item that we thought we were approving at 2,500 actually got put into Gateway at 25,000 because we never brought up the spreadsheet to see what was in it and to see the $10,000 to the $20,000 pay increases that are in that fund. And so my issue really is that we didn't go through it and know what we were approving.
Well, I went through it, and I knew exactly what I was approving, so.
So you didn't catch the changes that were made without council approval?
We approved what was originally presented to us. That's what.
That's not what.
That is not.
That was entered in after as everything was changed on our budget adoption. So.
Gateway showing it as both advertised and adopted, which means that the advertised was actually entered in before we adopted it.
Well,
that was changed adopted.
Yeah, and we don't need to get back into this. The process was explained during our budget adoption night as to how their software works and what order you have to do things. So we'll move on.
If we had just brought it up on the council adoption night, we would have seen the changes and we could have addressed it then.
Yeah, and the council already voted to appropriate this money. So I feel like, as Councilman Emery says, it's kind of silly to appropriate raises for people that we can appropriate raises for, and then to revoke them in an ordinance.
Mr. Knowlton, can you back me up on that? Some of these funds we can't touch. I called the state, and I mean, they literally told me that we can't. I just don't even know.
Sure, some salaries are set by statute.
We can't hear him.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on this ordinance?
Even though we pay for it.
So now we have the second.
I'll withdraw my last motion.
Okay, so then we are back to the motion, which we're at two changes now, the 25,000 to the 2,500, and then the recycling center director salary was decreased. We've not voted on, we voted on your motion to amend, but we haven't voted on the whole thing yet.
Right. What's that salary line to be?
I wrote it in here, yeah. Okay, any further discussion on this ordinance then? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. Okay, ordinance 2024-11J, which is the reporters. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Emery, second by Councilman Steele. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimously as well. And then next we have 2024-11K. This is the central dispatch. We have a motion by Councilman Emery. Second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes on first reading. Okay, this next, this is the resolution on the school funds transfer, which I believe we approved that. So I'll send that out. Mr. Kane, would you look, is there anyone that signed up on the sheet there?
That sheet was not there when I came in. I'd like to speak.
I got here by Thursday, it was already over.
Okay, first we have David Sargent. You state your name and where you're from, and we'll have 3 minutes.
No, he's out. Gail, Henry, and Fawn are going.
David Sargent at 609 Avenue Lane here in Anderson. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for putting up with me this past year. I'd like to get into it very quickly. On September 16th, we put in a petition to the council with an objection to the budget for the coroner's office. We asked for 10 radios, the Motorola N30 series, 800 megahertz portable radios. With my background, I've been involved with emergency management, the incident command system, and the national incident management system. One of the things that came up at the plane crash is they had to have, from my understanding, from what I was told, they had to have somebody go with the coroners because they did not have radios that could contact with other public agencies. They've got cell phones, which is person to person. A public safety radio is like a party line. Everybody can hear. Coroners respond to incidents. You know, someone being killed in a motor vehicle accident on the highway, plane crashes, other things. Usually there is an incident commander who is in charge of the scene that takes total control, and every agency works for him. They have no communication themselves. I remember Anthony Emery talking about maybe not funding 10 radios at once. If you could fund 2 or 3 radios for the 2 new vehicles that were authorized under ARPA, 1 extra radio, because the coroner already is the Alexandria fire chief. He already has a radio. Having 1 for his chief deputy and 1 for each of the new units would ensure coroner safety plus coordination at the scene of an incident. We have 2 police officers here. Bethany Keller went to Johnson County with me. It makes sense to have communications for everybody at the scene so the scene safety is assured in coordination. The coroner has promised to try and live within his budget. He only asked for 1 used vehicle. You guys on the ARPA committee managed to getting 2 new ones that will save a lot of pressure, help with the safety of the coroner's office. So if you would get with him and you could find it that we had the extra money judiciously, that you could afford 3 radios for the coroner's office, I would very much appreciate it. Speaking for me as someone who's been involved with public service for over 40 years, and also, you know, for the coroner, if he would agree to it for his needs, for safety of these coroners and also for communication and safety of the incident scene. Thank you.
Hi, there you go. How much money did we appropriate for the used vehicle for the coroner's office?
85.
May I speak on that?
No,
Real quick?
I believe it was closer to 10, like in the general fund.
I don't know, but again, right now we're following the agenda. We're on public comment.
Okay, just one thing. I checked with the coroner on that for the upfitting of the vehicles. The upfitting was included. No money was included for radios. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Cheryl McKinney, Anderson, Indiana. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I have a couple of concerns that I will address, only 2 of them, because I have more than we have enough time for. One of them is notoriously this council does not meet in December. I'm not sure how you can do that when you come every single month that I've been here. People have been asking for new monies, been asking for monies to be taken from this fund and put into that fund. So what are these people are going to do when you guys don't meet in December? Anderson City will meet in December. They don't stop. Government doesn't stop because you only want to work 11 months out of the year. You can laugh, Ben. You can laugh. That's fine. So I also understand that funds cannot be spent until they're appropriated. We watched here tonight numerous times. Money was already spent. We can talk about the election board. It was spent before it was appropriated. It's not allowed, but yet you guys continue to allow it. I only have one other comment. I know I said two. You guys have approved all this money for parks. The county doesn't own any land. You guys said that. So where are they going to get this land? Eminent domain? So we're going to pay taxpayers for money? And this is not an attack on anybody on your board, and I won't use their name. However, there's somebody on this board that owns an awful lot of farmland out in the county. Are they going to make money on this? Shake your hand all you want.
Again, you're just being inappropriate.
If you're not.
You can have a seat.
So I'm inappropriate when you don't like what I have to say.
You can have a seat. No, there's something called decorum
I
and being
would
appropriate in a public meeting. So our next council meeting, it actually says here January 7th, but that's actually the first Tuesday, and so I believe the correct date should be January 14th. At this point, I would.
Gail, can we talk about the potential for the radius for the corner?
That's something that should be put on the next council agenda.
The coroner should be bringing that forward.
Yes, exactly. The elected coroner. Yeah.
We still have one more, Mr. Gale. President Gale.
Oh, go ahead.
Jim Bauer, I'm the present Stony Creek Township Fire Territory President. I'm also a Stony Creek Precinct Committee number 1. I heard the 911 dispatch, and I appreciate what they do and how much they got involved in, and I wouldn't take that away from them. But I've also heard since then that since LaPel Stony Creek can't pay their share because we are on the brink of disaster when it comes to our fire territory, and we are presently in negotiations with South Madison Fire Territory, which will take 2 years to get accomplished. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but I would think that somehow public safety funds, rainy day fund, somehow this council can come up with funds to pay the remaining monies for these fire departments. Because if they limit our services, that's going to be a public safety problem. And that's what they're talking about doing right now, limiting the services to the ones that haven't paid. Just letting you know, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn, and we have a second. Rick, was there?
Yeah, I'm just curious if that, I don't know where that date came from, but there's a possibility that January 7th was for reorganization. I don't know that.
Okay. Typically, we've always just had our one January meeting. So unless there's any complaints from the council members about that being on the second Tuesday in January. You want it on the first? Okay. All right.
Were you discussing having 2 meetings in
No.
January?
No, we typically have one meeting in January, and for some reason, the date that was put here was for the first Tuesday, where our meetings typically sit on the second Tuesday. So I just wanted to clarify that. And if the council chooses that they want to meet on the first Tuesday, that's fine, but that'd be up to you all. So.
And Ben, we just want to discuss, I know you and I are outgoing, but for the reorganization, there's been a couple council members asking on how the January meeting will move forward with the president, vice president longer being here. In years past, the auditor's office will call the meeting to order, and the first act of business will be voting on the president. Right. Once that's done, the gavel's handed over to the president handles the rest of the meeting then.
Right.
Just for your own curiosity, if you were curious.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank
There's
you.
a couple of you guys that did not check the proper thing on some of these ordinances.
Ms. White, thank you for your comment being on point to the commissioner's request. Maybe if the twat bag Ben Gale would shut his mouth and not interrupt the public when they're speaking, he would realize that the people are going to speak about what's on the agenda.
I'll give you a second.
Thank you, Bethany. Way to stand up for the people.
Good riddance to these elected officials that are leaving because it's much overdue. They needed to be lost long ago.
Everybody's laughing. He's something to baby. He's good. Hold on.
Yes.
What's up, man? How you doing, Tim? Doing good.
Lucky, man. I know it, Ron. I know. I know, Robin, I'm sorry. I was trying to. So this one is all right. I really love how you communicate with the council. I wish all the departments would communicate like this. Rob and Anthony, you need to sign this. Okay. This one's not all signed by everybody. It's the weirdest.